that time again for another Q&A. This is a chance for my patrons to get to ask me questions about really anything. Hopefully about music, but mostly anything. If you want to join in on this, it's just $2 a month on my Patreon account. It helps me out a ton. You can check out my account by checking out the YouTube card or in the description below. You know how Q&As work. Let's get started. Who would you consider the worst band, Limp Bizkit or Simple Plan? Wow. Starting them off easy. Okay. Honest answer, the worst band, yeah, Simple Plan, by far. I mean, Limp Bizkit I don't like at all, but that's mainly because of Fred Durst. Swap out Fred Durst for many other singers, and Limp Bizkit's fine. Change the lyrics too for a lot of the songs, but still, Limp Bizkit's fine. Simple Plan, that's irreparable damage. There's nothing that can be done with that. That is such a corporate band. That's the best way to say it. That band was made and promoted by a boardroom of wealthy businessmen up in Canada. There's no other way to say that. Yeah, Simple Plan's the worst. By far. Out of Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, and Alice in Chains, which is your favorite grunge band and why? That's a difficult one. Well, the one I grew up with and knew the most was Pearl Jam because my sister, who's 7 years older than me, was huge into Pearl Jam when I was really young. So I grew up with all that music. I grew up with the album 10, you know? So that's the one that's most memorable for me. If we're going just by breaking it down though, like best vocalist, yeah, Soundgarden for sure. Lyric-wise, I don't know. I always held more to Alice in Chains in that kind of situation. There's so much from Alice in Chains that's really deep. You know, from just everything Lane Staley sang about, even when he was getting angrier or just really depressed. I mean, that always connected a little more. Soundgarden had a lot of great stuff too, though, lyrics, so that's hard. So I guess, favorite? I don't know, it's hard to say. I mean, if you take Pearl Jam's 10 aside, I don't really care as much about Pearl Jam, so Pearl Jam's great, but I would put it a tie between Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. Love Nirvana too, but again, I'm very aware that people say Nirvana's overrated. That's the very cool thing to say now on YouTube comments, but I don't think they're overrated at all. They helped spark a generation, and they deserve the title and all the acclaim that comes with that. Talent-wise though, across the board, it's between Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. And I'm not trying to ignore Stone Temple Pilots, it's just, it was never my thing. I don't know why. But just putting that in there, I would say between Soundgarden and Alice in Chains for sure. What's your take on the whole five-finger death punch situation? What the heck is wrong with Ivan Moody? Get it together. There, that's the whole situation right there. I actually was thinking about making a video, just like how I said, will we ever be happy with Linkin Park again? Something along the lines of that, just a think piece. But if Ivan Moody does another thing that's stupid, I will make a video on this, because I've seen Five-Finger Death Punch several times. Photograph them up close in the photo pit at festivals. Every show in a 6-month period is the same. 50% cover songs. Ivan is just stumbling around, having fun, but not caring, not really giving a delivery. And the other guys are having fun too. They're playing, they're posing. It's just the same thing. And then after a few songs, Ivan Moody stops the show to address rumors from TMZ and everything else. Like clockwork, he does this every show, or at least he used to, for months at a time. No other band has to do that. And now, with the whole situation in the Netherlands, doing that crap again, it was bad enough when he said his mother was in the hospital and his sister had to call him out on his crap, and canceling that show. And now he's done something like this in the Netherlands, saying halfway through a performance, like halfway through the concert, this is my last show with the band, just to screw with the other guys' heads. They don't need him. They are talented musicians. They do not need Ivan Moody. Ivan Moody is a talented singer. He's not well in the head right now. He needs help. He needs to get off the road. Take a year off. Doesn't want to leave the band, I get that. But if the other 4 guys are fed up, they have other singers they can fill in and not have to deal with this crap anymore. So, wow, that was a lot to say. I'll say a lot more if I ever have to make that video. But just to sum up, they need to move on without Ivan Moody. That's my whole take on the situation with Five-Finger Death Punch. They can find someone else to fill in, and they will be fine. What episode of Regretting the Past did you feel the least annoyed or angry about? That's a good question. I wasn't that angry, I was kind of annoyed, but I wasn't that angry at Weathered by Creed, because even though it's ridiculous and embarrassing, that was at the point though where Creed like had peaked, or just right after they peaked with Human Clay. And I think that's when Scott Stapp started going off the deep end. I mean, there is some cheese in that album, so it's kind of fun to laugh at now. So I wasn't as angry at that. You know, I wasn't like Good Charlotte angry. That one was probably the angriest I got. But yeah, I think Creed's Weathered might be it. I don't count Fall Out Boy's Save Rock and Roll, because even though it kind of annoyed me, again, it's hard to say because that wasn't even really rock. You know, do I really count that? I don't know. So I'd say the least annoyed or angry about probably would be Creed's Weathered, just because there are like 3 songs on there that are good. 3 out of a whole album, right? You know, but I'd say that one. And plus, I will never forget, and I still get these comments almost every other day, someone typing in the word sex and putting that into like a string of lyrics from any other song. Go back to the Regretting the Past for Creed's Weathered and just scroll through the comments and see what people come up with. I created a terrible nightmare machine in that comment section. What has been the worst concert experience and what happened? Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this short, and I'm not gonna say the band because the band and the other bands playing that night had nothing to do with it. This was at Underbelly in Jacksonville, Florida, and I say the location because this is the reason why it happened. Underbelly, it's a smaller venue, not bad size though. They do what they can with the space. It's in downtown Jacksonville. The second band was playing, and I have never seen so many people crushing each other to get close to the stage. The women in the crowd were getting painfully crushed, and like the guys behind them were these drunk bros, like trying to like push each other and shove each other, start a mosh pit when no music was playing. It was that obnoxious. And it got to the point where women were getting tossed around and pushed around, and then one guy got completely hit in the back of the head, and the guy that got hit in the back of the head turned around and started throwing punches at the other guy that wasn't even a part of it, just some other random guy. Security, what did they do? Just started laughing. They thought it was funny. Women are getting pushed around, getting crushed and squished, and these other guys are trying to fight each other now. And security thinks it's funny. And there was a lot of security too, just leaning back, laughing. Thought it was the funniest thing. That was despicable to me. The band played another song and then pointed to these guys pushing and fighting each other around and said, "Hey, what's going on here? What the heck?" And the whole 20 or 30 people around the guys fighting all pointed at the one guy who threw the punch. And the guy that threw the punch, he said, "Whatever, screw this place," and just walked away. Security didn't do a thing. The band continued their set. They just set their instruments down to the end of the set, no encore. You could tell they were upset too about the whole thing. And that was it. That was the end of the whole band's performance that night. That wasn't even the headliner either. Then the headliner came. I have never seen so many people like pushed to the front. Like, people get excited for that, and that's fine. Women were getting crushed against the barricade. And like security at that point was trying to push people back, and they couldn't even do anything at that point. Like the fans in the front were just like trying to elbow each other to reach on to grab, you know, the singer and stuff like that because they were so excited. And again, women were getting hurt. I was just beside myself with how bad it was. Security just gave up after a while. I left after the second song for the headliner, even though I was shooting and I was supposed to be taking photographs. I just couldn't take it anymore, so I just left. And when I walked out with just the people running the place, or like keeping guard of like who gets in and out, because they had my name under the press and media tablet, they just looked at me and goes, "Oh, see you next week, right?" They didn't even care. It's just normal for them, I guess. I don't know. I never went back. I never will go back. That was just beyond any excuse for me. I just thought that was awful. So that was the worst. And I didn't want to say the band's name because, again, it had nothing to do with the band or bands playing that night. So yeah, sometimes concerts can get like that. What's your favorite Dio album, if you're familiar with Dio, that is? Holy Diver. That's an easy one. I mean, I'm not familiar extremely with his work past that, but yeah, that's the one that my dad showed me or played for me when I was young, you know, so, and he didn't even listen to Dio that much, but that's the one he played for me, so yeah, the debut. Name a movie or movies that you can see over and over again. Lord of the Rings trilogy. I have them all on Blu-ray, the extended editions. I have the original extended editions. I have the original DVDs, like the actual like hard case DVD copies that came like when the whole movie on one disc. When this was back in like the PS2 days, that's what I said, because that's what I watched it on every day after school. Like when I was a freshman in high school, I would come home, pop Fellowship of the Ring on DVD on my PS2 and just let that play all the way through while I did homework or whatever. So Lord of the Rings, the entire trilogy, always hold a special place in my heart for that. I also worked at a movie theater when Return of the King came out, and I got to see that the night before it came out. That was huge for me. Like, it was like a private viewing, just because I worked at the movie theater at that time. That was huge for me. So, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Is there any modern country artist or artist that you tend to like or listen to? No. Sorry for an anticlimactic answer on that one, but there's not. I can't stand current country. Like, older country, even like late 80s, early 90s, I can at least understand. I can't stand any of the newer country right now. How electronic it's become. I mean, I talk about Nickelback's formula a lot recently. Country music, especially this country pop, has a formula. It's awful too. So yeah, there's no current country I listen to. What are your thoughts on The Fragile by Nine Inch Nails? I feel like it's a criminally underrated record. I agree. People talk about the Downward Spiral, which is understandable. Pretty hate machine, you know. I love With Teeth, which a lot of people don't really talk about that much. It's not everyone's favorite, and it's not my favorite either, but still. But yeah, it's, you know, The Fragile really has a lot of good stuff on it that people don't really address. But again, it's not that it's a detriment to that album. It's just because look at how much it's being compared to in the Downward Spiral. I think that's part of it also. So I think that's why it may not be underrated or not talked about as much, because people want to talk about probably what's their most famous, and that is the Downward Spiral, in my opinion anyway. What's your opinion on the new Fozzy single, Judas? Judas is great. And this is coming from someone who has never been that crazy about Fozzy. I saw Fozzy live in 2005. This was when Jericho was still doing stuff on Raw, like when they just started doing the brand split, if you're a wrestling fan, with John Cena and Chris Jericho. I saw them live in St. Louis at Pops. So, the band behind him can play, and I've never just been that crazy about the lyric-wise. Chris Jericho's voice is fine, but just it never connected with me. Judas, I think, is great. This is the best song they've done ever, in my opinion. So, yeah, I think it's awesome. What's your opinion on Falling in Reverse? They can be an interesting band to talk about. I can't stand Roddy Radke. He is awful. Awful! I know, I think I get why some people like him. A lot of the younger generations like him. A lot of the younger Warped Tour crowd. That's what I saw them last year at Warped Tour. I wasn't even that familiar with him. He's a creep. He is a creep. That is the best word to describe him. I don't think he's that great of a vocalist. I think he causes more trouble than he's worth. I don't think the rest of the band behind him should have to deal with someone like that. But again, he's part of the draw for a lot of his audience. So I'd say you take out Ronnie Radke, I'd be more prone to follow Falling in Reverse, but without him, Falling in Reverse falls apart. So the band's kind of a moot point at that point. Moot point at that point. Wow, that sounded smooth. I'm not a fan of Falling in Reverse. See what it's doing to my brain? Not a fan. If you ever have the time, would you consider making a gaming channel? I'd love to see you do regretting the past style videos on awful games like Ride to Hell Retribution and Bubsy 3D. I've thought about it, and I do play video games. I have since as long as I can remember, with my sister's Nintendo, and I had a Sega Genesis. There's no way I could because I don't have time. I want to devote it to Rocked. And there's games I could play that I think no people have covered before, at least in the gaming community. I mean, I found Channel Awesome through Angry Video Game Nerd, you know, when I first started watching that stuff on YouTube. So there's definitely like an interest in it. I have a Retron 5. I have my old games that I grew up with. I have every PlayStation game I've ever owned for the most part from PlayStation 1. So I've been Sony PlayStation since then, 1, 2, 3, 4. But yeah, I just don't have time to do it. So that's the only reason why. I would love to play games with people, like if people ever do Let's Plays or something like that and wanted to invite me on, I'd be totally down for that. Just, I don't think I could ever do a channel dedicated to that because that would take away from Rocked way too much. This might be a really short or long question, but Bon Jovi, yay or nay? Yay or nay? I don't really care about Bon Jovi. I know that's kind of weird to hear from a music guy. I just don't really care about him. He's fine for what he was. I think his heyday was long ago, before a lot of us were born. But, you know, when he's come back in the year 2000 or around that time with It's My Life, I mean, I think that was the comeback for them. And even that was just that song, in my opinion. Don't get upset if you're a huge Bon Jovi fan and watching my channel for some reason. But I don't hate him. I just don't really care for him either. So that's probably the best way I can say it. A lot of answers I'm giving are kind of like that this time. Sorry, it's just I don't have a strong opinion either way, except for Falling in Reverse and Five Finger Death Punch. Okay, maybe not every question's been like that. I just got out of the shower, by the way. That's why my hair is like this. Like disgustingly wet and gross and weird. Someone said I look like the character from The Ring with the hair like this. I know it's not a guy that does this. Let me try. 7 days. I think I can be creepy enough. Sorry. Hair is always causing me issues. Favorite song by Shinedown. The one I played the most and the one I probably remember the most is Devour, off The Sound of Madness. I think that's the song that caused me to buy the album. So I think that's probably my favorite, or at least my most memorable. I don't have every Shinedown album. Like Shinedown fine. I've liked them more as they've gone on. I wasn't crazy about Leave a Whisper. I thought 45 was kind of hokey, but they've definitely developed and grown on me over the years, especially with the later albums. They've matured, I think. That's a big part of it too. But if I had to pick a favorite song, probably Devour. A while back, you were asked what was holding the metal genre back, and you responded that we had not had a new figurehead like Metallica to take the genre. To follow up on that, what factors could prevent a band from doing so? Someone getting in their own way. Think about Ivan Moody from Five Finger Death Punch, because he's being talked about, like just with the question we had earlier, and just in, music news. You have a band or a person in a band that can ruin everything on that front. Five Finger Death Punch has a huge following right now. They're headlining festivals around the world, and they can't get their heads together. They can't get their act straight. So, that's kind of deflates their whole momentum when they do that. I'd say, I don't know. I think that's a big part of it. Just a band gets in their own way once they get too big. I think another thing that could prevent a band from doing so is just if they don't have enough people to support them. You could have the most amazing band in the world, but if people don't go see them live, they're not going to make it. It's not like pop stars who they can have sponsors and a network and TV kind of promotes that it's going to be this big spectacle and this person's performing. Bands have to make it on the road. That's what makes or breaks them. Even now, you see these pretty decent-sized name bands that are playing like mid-sized venues because not enough people buy tickets and want to go see them. It kind of sucks, but if you're not going to see your favorite bands live, they're not going to come around much more very often. So if you get the chance, see them live. Buy the t-shirts, buy their music, buy a sticker, buy something. Go see them live if you can afford a ticket, It's worth it. It's worth it to them. You'll enjoy the experience. You're supporting a band you like, and that's how bands grow. It proves to them that it's worth it, and they'll continue to make music. And that's how rock in general, metal in general, will get bigger. Rock and metal can get on top again, but it's going to take work. It's not just going to happen overnight. So, we need fan support for a band, and we also need that one, like we talked about in the last Q&A, we need that one band to really take off, and that'll help all the other bands behind them in rock and metal. So, I don't know. There's so many facets to that question that could be answered. I just wish I had a more definitive answer that could see very quick results. I'm hopeful that it'll happen sooner than later. I just don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. Out of all the bands you've interviewed, who are some of the coolest or nicest people you've met? Okay, I've met a lot of nice people. That's what people don't realize anymore. Bands, like working backstage, bands on the road, it's not like the late 80s where everyone's drugged up and partying backstage. People are working, they're humble, and they're extremely nice. The guys from Nothing More are some of the nicest people I've ever met, It's amazing how nice they are. Stephen Christian from Anne Boleyn was one of the first people I ever interviewed. He's probably one of the nicest people on the planet. So there's definitely people like that are great, You just have to be able to talk to them. There's a lot of other cool people I've met too. The guys from Gemini Syndrome are awesome. I got to meet Stitched Up Heart very briefly in New York and talk with them for a few minutes. They're all awesome people, There's a lot of examples of that. Not everyone I've interviewed has been great. But there's been a lot of very awesome, cool people. Starset, I love to death. I love talking to those guys. I love seeing them all the time. I try to make it a point to see them whenever I can. It's so hard. I'm not even remembering all the bands I've interviewed. That's the sucky thing too. But yeah, there's a ton. But just the ones that stick out of my head are the ones I just said. One other one I want to point out though, because it was so awesome that it happened, is the Pretty Reckless, because I got to interview them like an impromptu interview. I was not expecting to interview them this past Welcome to Rockville, and they were there. Everyone was packing up or had gone by that point late in the afternoon. It was just myself and my friend that was helping me, and like 2 other groups. And one of them was the news crew. And Taylor and Ben from the Pretty Reckless walked up with their tour manager, said, "Hey, we're just gonna do some interviews for people if they're here." I was like, huh? So I waited, and they came and talked to me. They introduced themselves to me. They shook my hand, you know, and we had a good discussion. And they were super nice, friendly, and it was the start of their tour too. They were excited, you know, they had energy, and it was so cool to me because I had heard nothing but bad things about their interviews. And that totally blew me away, that everything was fine, they were nice. So I just wanted to point that out too. I thought they were great. So whenever you hear someone say, the Pretty Reckless suck, they don't give good interviews, they were nice to me. They were willing to talk then. So I don't know, you just have to see for yourself sometimes. If you get the chance to meet some of your favorite bands, meet them, talk to them. They are real people. It's worth talking to the people. Some people say don't ever meet your heroes. It's worth trying. You might be surprised just how human they actually are. And you might find you have things in common with them too, and that's awesome. Which singer or band just dumbfounds you with their popularity? Like you stand there thinking, why? Why do people like this? It's hard to say. For a long time I would have said Puddle of Mud, but Wes Scantlin's done a great job of completely evaporating and disintegrating his fan base by just completely closing down his own shows to the point where his own band walks away from him. Yeah, that's a whole other thing with Puddle of Mud recently. Not even recent, like a year ago or so. I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm always trying to keep the mindset of if someone likes something, let them like it. Let them support a band they liked, you know? I have bands that I love that a lot of other people don't, and that's fine. And the same goes for musicians and too outside of rock and metal. But, I don't know. There's probably some, if I really sat down and think about it, like I don't get. Like Amur? I don't get why people like Amur at all. I mean, I think they are awful. Terrible. But I know they have fans. I think it's just because of that subgenre. But they have fans, so you know what? If people want to like Amur, let them like it. We can like what we want. That's what's kind of nice about everyone's opinion, you know? We can all hold dear what we believe and what we see and what we hear. Let people like what they want to like. Don't become an angry, bitter YouTube troll. And if you don't like something, explain why you don't like them. I don't like Amur because I think they are very forced. They're not believable. It's like poser rock and poser metal. They're not as tough as they claim to be. Their lyrics are horrendously poorly written. They're awful. The music is just borderline noise and like no real discipline in their like guitar lines, their bass lines, their drumming. Everything's just awful. Everything's poorly written. It's, I don't know. It's just pandering to that weird subgenre of Amur and Attila and King A10, you know. So I guess that'd be a good band, but at least I can explain why I don't like them. But if you like them, go for it. It doesn't bother me. At least I can explain why. That's a good way to say it. So if you don't like a band, try to explain why you don't like them instead of saying, this band sucks. And then just, that's it. I think that's a good tip also. If you like something, explain why you like it. Just don't say, well, this band's awesome. Explain why to people. Why do you like them? You don't like a band, be able to explain why. Don't just leave it as this band sucks or this band's awesome. As for why, how can I ever understand why people like a band like Amur? I don't know, but people do, and that's fine. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. So I'll leave it at that, you know? There's a lot that can be done in rock and metal, but support the bands you like, even if other people don't like them. And you never know just what that could cause for a lot of different bands. Even though I don't like Amur, that doesn't mean you can't like them and you can't support them. Go to their concerts. Buy their t-shirts if you like them that much. It doesn't bother me any, and you're helping out a band you like. I could say that for a lot of bands I love. I wish more people saw the bands I love, because that means I'd get to see them more also. They'd want to tour more. They'd want to make more music. It all comes down to support music, support rock, support metal. Keep watching my videos if you're looking for new music too. I know that's a kind of a weird pitch. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing to bring you new music. I want to keep finding it also. So let's hope we can find new stuff that we love and explain why we love it.